You're tuned to 107.7 KNYO, and you're tuned to For Bragg USA. Fun, engaging conversation with real human beings on the Mendocino coast. The opinions expressed here are not reflective of KNYO staff or management or anybody related to our license, so just make for sure we're all having fun. And nobody's not having fun. I have Scott Peterson here on the other side. Chris is out for the evening, remixing some stuff at the old KDAC studio, which is kind of cool. He may drop in if stuff slows down, so we'll see about that later. But on the phone, we have Mr. Jeff Roy from Elk Fire as our guest this evening. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Jeff Roy. Jeff, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. We have Jeff Roy on the line from Elk Fire. Thank you for joining us. This is really cool. And
So nice to be here.
Great. We have a whole bunch of questions for you, obviously, because we've got you here. And do you have anything you'd like to say as far as a mission statement or anything like that with Elk Fire? I mean, what's your mission statement down there? Like, mind your hose, don't get burnt. Is there anything you guys say, for your fire department?
Well, besides stay safe, we're one of the smaller fire departments here on the coast, and we run about 60 calls a year. We operate an ambulance out of Elk because we're kind of in the middle of the paid ambulances here, and we have an absolutely great fire department, and we just enjoy it to the max.
That's really cool. All right. I have some fun questions to start with. Actually,
we have some not so fun questions.
Well, we have some of those too. We've got some of those too, but I have like a childish question here, and that's because sometimes I see fire trucks in different agencies that are green or yellow, but most of the time they're red. Why do some fire departments run with like green engines instead of red? And what's your favorite color of fire truck?
That's a good question. I think we all enjoy red, and green fire engines generally are the U.S. Fire Service.
Okay.
And beyond our Forest Service, and beyond that, usually budget dictates what color we're going to end up with in terms of finding a truck, and a lot of times it's white. We also have a yellow truck, so I would just look for those red flashing lights and emblems on the door.
There you go. Okay. And another casual question, what's the highest you've ever climbed up a ladder in that line of work?
In Elk, two-story buildings are extremely rare, and so I'd have to say just climbing up onto a second floor
okay.
Like roof height is all done.
So no like 90-foot ladder truck experience or anything?
No, that's true. That's way beyond our budget.
Okay, I do have one question from a gentleman on Facebook that was asking, and it's kind of off of where we're going to go, but I thought I'd throw it in since he asked, and that is, what is your view of Measure V, the hack and squirt forestry practice, and how does that relate to Elk Fire?
Well, we don't have that much of that going on in our district, and we also have a very good relationship with the logging companies and lumber companies in our area. So we just don't encounter much of that, and my understanding is they apply a very small amount of that chemical, and from my experience with herbicides that I've used, they just don't last very long, and anytime I've had a container of Roundup that's a year old, it's very weak compared to what it was when it was new, and so we just don't encounter it very much.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into something a little more in depth. What is an ISO rating, and where does Elk stand in the ISO ratings? Do you is that something you're into or understand there?
Yes, ISO is an insurance rating organization that the rating of a particular fire department is used to determine basically how much money you pay for your, sorry, my cell phone's ringing here.
It might be a fire.
No, I see it's my wife.
Well, that is a fire.
It might be a fire.
Fire insurance at your house.
Sure. Okay.
Now, some insurance companies really don't use that rating, and I've had them call me up and ask specific questions about a particular house they want to insure, like how close is the nearest fire station? Is it manned or unmanned? What kind of engines are in that station? What kind of engines are the next nearby ones? Things like that.
Okay. Do you know how Elk is rated as far as like downtown and the outlying areas for the ISO rating?
Yes, in Elk, it's kind of a unique situation, like compared to, for say, Mendocino. Elk, in the town of Elk, they actually have a water system with water supply and fire hydrants and things like that. And then the outlying areas are rural, and it used to be that we were a 7 in town and what they call a 9 outside of town, the lowest being a 1, which would be if you lived like right next door to a big city fire station. They recently changed that, and we are now what's called an 8X. And it's a similar rating, just they've changed the numbers a little bit and gone to this X designation for the outlying areas.
Interesting. So on that scale, is 1 the best or the worst? How does that work?
Oh, 1's the best.
Okay. So
my understanding would be that 10 is no fire protection at all.
Yeah. That means you are
9
on fire.
would be you're out in the boonies and there's some fire engine, a fair distance from your house.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty fair there. And would you agree that Elk is a volunteer fire department, like many operate on a shoestring budget?
Oh, yes. Elk is some may call it a hybrid department in that we have a community services district, and they do collect money from property owners here in the district. But when you consider how many properties there actually are in our district, it's pretty small, and I believe the money they bring in from taxes might be $67,000 in that neighborhood. And a lot of that money is spent on fixed expenses like insurance and audits and government-mandated items. And so there really isn't much left to. You throw in a payment on a fire truck, an inexpensive one like we buy an Elk, which may cost $60,000 or $70,000 compared to the $300,000 plus. There's just not much left, and we survive largely on donations from the community. We sell T-shirts and hats and hold a barbecue every year, and I guess our community is the reason we're able to make it.
Okay. How could the ISO rating be improved? Is there anything right off the top of your head that could improve the rating?
There are things that can improve it, but those things come with a cost, and
Sure.
they come with a lot of time in terms of maintenance and manpower to achieve them and maintain them. And something I like to tell people when they ask is that our fire department has the same number of volunteers that it's almost always had.
Yeah.
When I read newspaper columns back in the 1980s, we had a little under 20 volunteers then, just like we do now. But the requirements on us are way, way more.
Yeah, there's more homes than in the 80s around there.
Well, there's really not that many more homes around here because of development restrictions and things. And what I'm saying is the government requirements are way, way more. For example, to be an EMT,
Sure.
I went through that about 20 years ago, and you go through about 150 hours of training. But since then, they've heaped on that hours for re-education classes, hours for skills training and certifications.
Wow.
You have to pay for background checks, all kinds of paperwork, and those requirements are way, way more. And I think all the fire departments are having trouble with that.
Yeah. When you include the wear and tear of daily operations, does Elk Fire Department have an annual shortfall? And does that shortfall accumulate over time, if so?
Well, I would would say this. I would say we don't have a shortfall, but there are a lot of requirements of fire departments, and volunteer fire departments are included in that we just simply are unable to meet. We just can't do them.
Okay. And you mentioned that you guys are a hybrid and that you're part of the Elk Community Services District. Have they ever given you any numbers about like shortfall accumulations or any like debt or like financial issues that need to be caught up on?
Well, yes, I'd say right now the Community Service District is carrying a loan for the last fire truck we bought, and I believe that's a 6-year loan in that neighborhood, and they're going to be carrying that for the next 3-4 years. You know, that ties up, I'd say, $1,000 a month of their money. So that's $12,000 of their annual budget. And in terms of what's actually left for us to buy things with, you know, that $12,000 is significant.
Sure, absolutely. Are you guys a public benefit organization then?
Public benefit, I'm not sure what that means.
Scott, you want to elaborate on what is a public benefit organization? We were kind of designing some questions, and
I guess there are 501c3 nonprofits, and then they're broken down into like subcategories, and they're like, I've seen fire departments that are volunteer fire departments that are called public benefit, which helps to make them exempt from taxes.
Okay, well that's fair. How many vehicles does Elk Fire have, including like ladder trucks, water tenders, rescue stuff, four-wheelers? I mean, do you guys have a pretty big arsenal, or is it pretty stripped down? I mean, I realize Elk isn't like Fort Bragg or Mendocino. It's probably a smaller shop down there.
Well, we may be smaller in terms of population, but in terms of square miles, we're pretty good size. Our district is 57 square miles. Yeah, I live on the southern end of the district, and for me to drive out to the east end, it takes me a half an hour to get there.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have to spread out our resources. We have a main fire station in Elk.
Okay.
And in Elk, there is an ambulance. There's what's called a Type 1 engine, which is kind of a city-like pumping engine. We have a rescue truck there, and, of course, we have a water tender. Then we have 3 satellite stations, one in the north, one in the east, and one in the south.
Okay.
The one in the north on Cameron Road has a pickup truck-style engine that's equipped with a diverse amount of equipment. And they can pump, they can rescue, they can apply foam for vehicle accidents. But it's a small truck, and they like it there for going down tight driveways.
Sure.
On the south end, we have a little bigger truck that's a wildland-style engine. And then out Philo Greenwood Road, about 8.5 miles, there's a station with 2 engines, a water tender and a wildland truck.
I noticed on my last trip to a client's place up, I believe it was Cameron Ridge Road, that there's a large water tank that says fire only or something like that. And it looked new compared to the last time. I don't know how long it's been there, but it looks like you guys had maybe laid another water tank up there.
Yes, a couple years ago, every year when we hold our barbecue, I send out a letter to members of the community. And we identify a project that's needed within the community and what we're aiming the funds from that barbecue towards. And that particular year, we put in 3 of those tanks. There's one on Cameron Road. There's one, 3.5 miles out Philo Greenwood Road from the coast. And then there's one further out Philo Greenwood Road. And one of our members, Mike Powers, he's a local forester, he helped with that project and designed the excellent look of those tanks. You know, they look sharp. Every year we hold a drill. We visit those tanks, make sure they're full of water. And even though 5,000 gallons doesn't even go on the radar for the ISO organization you were mentioning, we all know that's a lifesaver in terms of filling up your trucks and being able to handle a fire at a house or a wildland fire.
Well, I sure thought it looked convenient for the distance up the road, because that's a long road. And I thought, geez, if you had to go fill up a water truck, that's a long ways back down the grade and back to Elk or wherever the next place, or I don't know how all that works out, but I thought, oh, look at that. That's a neat tank sitting there. I'll tell you what, we're going to get into like the barbecue and the raffles, but let's just take a very short break so that we can catch our breath here a little bit, and we'll be right back. So just stay on the line, Jeff. We'll be right back with Jeff Roy. This is 107.7 KNYO, the Fort Bragg USA Hour, brought to you by Rhodes Auto Parts at 203 North Main Street in Fort Bragg, and you can call them at 964-5607 for an ASE certified mechanic. So Jeff, hold on, and we will be right back. You might like this.
One careless second with a match, and America the beautiful becomes America the ugly. Please, help prevent forest fires.
I call this one the Campfire Song. Let's gather round the campfire and sing our campfire song. Our CAMPFIRESONG song. And if you don't think that we can sing it faster, then you're wrong. But it'll help if you just sing along.
Bum, bum.
CAMPFIRESONG song. CAMPFIRESONG song. And if you don't think that we can sing it faster, then you're wrong. But it'll help if you just sing along. CAMPFIRESONG song. Patrick!
Song! CAMPFIRESONG!
Squifford! Good! It'll help if you just sing along. Oh yeah!
I like the way the forest sounds, the way the leaves rustle in the wind and fall to the ground and crunch under your feet, the way the birds sing and the chipmunks chatter, the way a squirrel scrambles up a tree. I like the way the forest smells, too. The air's fresh, and you can tell the difference between one kind of tree and another just by smelling them. But did you know we can destroy all that beauty in just one careless second? That's why I'm asking you to please be careful with fire. Because when we lose a forest, we lose a lot more than meets the eye. I ought to know. I'm Ray Charles.
A public service on behalf of the Forest Service, State Foresters, and the Ad Council.
All right, we're back. This is 107.7, the Fort Bragg USA Hour. We're here with Fire Chief from the Elk Fire Department, Jeff Roy. Jeff, are you still there?
I'm still here.
All right. Now, we're going to turn a little bit here into like the benefit stuff now. Which question you want to start with, Scott?
I want to ask Jeff about the vehicles. Are the vehicles, the fire department vehicles, supposed to be state registered?
You mean registered with the DMV?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. And what about public benefit firefighting vehicles? And I'm not sure what the actual difference is between regular firefighting vehicles and, quote, public benefit firefighting vehicles. Are there some that are exempt?
You know, I'm not sure what that means. All our vehicles, they carry government E-plates.
So they're exempt from fees, but they're still tagged, of course.
Well, they're still taxed, and when we buy them, even if you buy them out of state, you have to pay the full DMV fees here, definitely.
Okay, interesting. And as far as being registered, what about public benefit fire departments? Are you guys actually registered? Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
You know, again, I'm not sure about the public benefit thing, but I can tell you this. I mean, we are an official fire department, and, you know, with the county, and we have a state designated abbreviation. We're known as EKV. I guess that's Elk Volunteer. And that's used anytime we respond in the state system, particularly if we go out of our own districts. You know, you're part of this massive state mutual aid system that goes to all our events. And so, yeah, we're registered.
What about with the Registry of Charitable Trusts? Are you guys registered with the charitable trusts?
You know, I'm not sure about that one either. The amount of grant activity we do is fairly limited just because of our manpower restrictions. We typically apply for grants locally. For instance, the Community Foundation in Mendocino County has been very helpful to us, and we've gotten grants from CAL FIRE and maybe another small one. But in terms of nationwide grants like FEMA grants, we just have never been able to find the resources to, spend all that time on them.
Okay. Now, Scott's done a lot of background on, like, fire departments and 501Cs, and the information that we've found is that public benefit fire departments are actually supposed to be registered with the Registry of Charitable Trusts, and that Elk Fire is delinquent in registering with the charitable trusts.
Really delinquent, huh?
Oops.
Ooh.
Yeah, oops. So we just, just to keep all the information clear and transparent here, we wanted to, because we're asking to see if you know, and these are questions that if I was a fire guy, I wouldn't know anything about these questions. I'd be like training to fight fires, be like, paperwork, what's that? Myself. So, yeah, we found that Elk Fire, Scott here found that Elk Fire is delinquent as far as registering with charitable trusts. And then on another note here, the website says that you guys hold raffles every year. And do you guys register your raffles with the state?
Well, not to my knowledge. I mean, we have to get a permit every time we conduct the parade at the Great Day in Elk, and of course,
okay,
have to get licenses to hold our barbecue. But I'm not. I mean, it's the first I've heard of these things, and
yeah.
So that was the National Registry of Public Trust, or
it's the state. It's rct.gov, I think. I'll try to get you the URL, but it's like a clearinghouse of filings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what we've dug up is that Elk Fire has never registered any of the raffles. And I learned about this because Scott and I were talking because I want to do a KNYO raffle. And he says, well, you have to register that with the Registry of Charitable Trusts. And I went, what? I don't know anything about this stuff. So I'm learning about this stuff myself. But I want to make for sure that the station, as a nonprofit, little low-power station for the community, that we're, all our ducks are in a row paperwork-wise before I start actually selling this roll of raffle tickets I already have. So that's something you may want to look into when you guys do raffles, is actually registering the raffles properly, just to make for sure all your paperwork is covered. How do you... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, the next thing here is, how are your current financing levels, and are they adequate for delivering fire protection, do you think?
Well, I'd have to say no, they're not adequate. We struggle constantly with two things. One, of course, is volunteers.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, these requirements for fire departments that we are unable to meet.
Okay.
And to give you an example, one thing that fire departments have are self-contained breathing apparatuses, to protect themselves from smoke. And
scuba.
Although they're not used very often in Elk, when you need them, you need them. And we recently, we're looking at spending over $10,000 just to replace some of the breathing bottles, because after a certain age you can't use them.
Okay.
And then to get a machine to refill them is a huge expense. I'm thinking around $40,000.
Wow.
And of course, those things are required by NFPA. Firefighters are required to have a fit-tested mask that they wear on their SCBA. We've never been able to afford that.
So that means each fireman has to be fit tested individually?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to make sure that mask is a tight fit.
All right.
So you might be in an environment that is not smoky, but maybe there's toxic gases involved. And
you might not even smell them and drop dead, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that work on my career in the past, and, perhaps a delivery truck crashes and there's something they're delivering that's, not smoky, but hazardous. And
yeah.
And so you're supposed to do that, and there are a lot of requirements like that we're just not able to meet.
So, is it ideal for each fireman on the fire department to have an air pack?
Well, it's really not feasible because a lot of our firefighters will respond in their own vehicle. They may hear that the trucks are already on the way to the call.
Sure.
And they'll just show up in their vehicle and then transfer to a truck. And so we keep the air packs on our trucks.
Okay.
And some trucks have more than others. For instance, the rescue vehicle has 4. Some of the other trucks only have 2.
Okay.
I got a casual question off the side of our other questioning here, and it's about the air packs and the cost. When I was in Montana, I did a little background searching. I was there for about 6 months, quite a while ago, about 20 years ago. And I did a little background looking into, like, the Man Gulch fire that a bunch of smoke jumpers lost their lives in. And I learned that they use those things. I guess the slang term is potato bakers. It's basically a little foil cocoon that you duck down on the ground and roll yourself up in so that the wildfire can just blow over you. I'll bet the potato baker little foil units are probably cheaper than those oxygen units. Just a hunch.
Well, they are. But
okay.
Those units you're talking about, they're called fire shelters.
Okay.
They are required on any wildland fire. I mean, you're hauling around that, it's reasonably heavy thing on your, they call it web gear that goes over your shoulders and your belt. And you hook, tools and water canteens and all kinds of things on there.
Mm-hmm.
They run about, I want to say, $425.
Wow.
And you have to have one of those for each firefighter. And then about every 10 years, I'd say, they change the requirements on them. And even though the ones you have may have never been used, you have to throw them out and get all new ones.
Yeah. Interesting. You could almost like donate them to the Boy Scout troops or something.
And by the way, those things are very cool and very important and useful, but they are something of last resort.
Absolutely.
Recently, I believe it was in Colorado, all those guys deployed their shelters.
Wow.
Mm.
And, the fire was just really bad.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So the fire shelters, I guess as you called them, what the people in Montana, I remember, called them potato bakers, just because I could imagine you probably feel like a baked potato once you're covered in one. And but that's interesting. Back to the financing levels. Now, what we asked about for fire protection, how are the financing levels and are they adequate for emergency services?
Well, we handle every single call that comes to us without exception. And that includes mutual aid calls where we go out of our district. I would say, we're definitely handling those calls.
Okay.
Now, if you want to say that we're handling those calls, up to snuff on all the requirements you're supposed to, I'd have to say no.
Okay. Yeah, it must be tricky to pull out everything.
The gear we've been talking about, the breathers, we have a protocol. You don't go in a smoky building unless you have 4 people set up in that equipment. You're going to send 2 people in. You're going to have 2 people as a backup, ready to go in as a rescue if needed.
Uh-huh.
And, it's a sizable investment to make sure all that equipment is in the proper places where it can be used, in an effective amount of time.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot today. So now to go on to a different kind of direction, what do you guys do exactly for fundraising? You did mention the barbecue. Is that it, or do you guys have other events too? And how much do you guys raise?
Well, I guess historically, as I mentioned, the Elk Volunteer Fire Department is a charitable, 501c3 corporation. And the Elk Community Services District, which was voted in by the residents, that's actually a government agency. They collect property taxes for the sole purpose of emergency services. So they have their fixed budget. And on the volunteer fire department, we just try and help out. We hold the barbecue. Typically at the barbecue, people buy, a delicious meal. We also sell T-shirts and hats and patches and things like that. And then people donate things for the auction, the raffle, as you mentioned. And we probably raise, I would say, on a good year, given all the donations that come in from the community, even from people who don't attend, I'd say $10,000.
Okay. Our number here, on the background is a little bit more. It's something like 12,000, but like you said, on a good year, it might go up and down a little bit. So that's pretty fair. Now there's a report.
It does vary quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And our barbecue, compared to, say, Albion, is quite small.
Okay.
We've never been able to sell more than 350 meals, and lately it's been more like 275, and other departments are quite a bit bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's a report on your fire department, the LAFCO report, about the number of residents you serve versus the household income and how much you raise for each resident. And do you know how much you guys raise, like, per capita per resident? That might be kind of a stretch of numbers to ask, I suppose.
Well, let me just do some quick math. I haven't studied that report that was handled by the district recently. I believe on the census, the last census, there might be 425 actual people living here. Now, not all those people are property owners that pay the tax. And let's say, given the fire department and the district, maybe we bring in 80,000. You can see what the math works out to be.
Okay.
A couple $100 per person.
What the council, the ECSD, says is that it's $25 per resident. That sounds kind of low.
Actually,
it's that high. Scott's got numbers here. I'm kind of feeding off numbers, and I don't know what they all mean.
Actually, that's a pretty good number. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's not bad. I've seen worse.
Wow.
So good job, Jeff.
And Mendocino only raises 4 cents per resident. So you guys are actually doing a lot better than Mendocino Fire.
Over a 4-year average.
Okay, over a 4-year average, it's 25 per resident for you guys versus Mendocino at 4 cents per resident.
4 cents, yeah.
Well, I guess I'm confused here. I mean, the math I did, if you take that 80,000 and divide it by the number of residents, I'm getting just under $200.
We're talking about the fire department, the 501c3, without taxes.
Oh, well.
Without
okay,
taxes.
So.
That's your muscle,
Yeah.
man. That's your ability to raise money, and that's a good. So it's a good number. $25 a resident as opposed to 4 cents is a pretty good number.
And who was 4 cents?
Mendocino, your neighbors to the north.
Well,
on a 4-year average, Mendocino's average is 4 cents a resident.
Yeah.
For the fire department.
I don't know what the population of their district is. It might be.
It's 3,000 ish.
Yeah, so that's 8 or so times what we have.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. Well, let's chew on that for a moment, and we'll take another short break. It's KNYO time is about 6:35. This is Fort Bragg, USA, featuring Jeff Roy from Elk Fire. I have Scott Peterson here in the studio. This hour brought to you by Rhodes Auto Parts at 203 North Main Street in downtown Fort Bragg. With all ASE certified parts technicians, you can call them at 964-5607. And here's another break with some more classic fire-related stuff that a lot of people might remember from earlier radio days. So we'll be back in about 2.5 or 3 minutes.
Now, young fellas, you've been having a lot of fun around here today, haven't you? Camping in the great outdoors, swimming and hiking. And you know what makes this all possible? This forest around us. The same forest that gives us timber for our homes, pure water to drink, wildlife to hunt, and to take pictures of. We should all be thankful for our forests. Now, I'm going to sing a song about someone who lives in the forest all the time and loves it the way we do. First, Pierre, come over here. Yes, Pierre is going to help me out with my song. Ready, Pierre? And now for my song. It's called Smokey the Bear. With the ranger's hat and shovel and a pair of dungarees, you will find him in the forest always sniffing at the breeze. People stop and pay attention when he tells them to beware, 'cause everybody knows that he's the fire-preventing bear. Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear, prowling and a-growling and a-sniffing the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name. You can take a tip from Smokey that there's nothing like a tree, 'cause they're good for kids to climb in and they're beautiful to see. You just have to look around you and you'll find it's not a joke to see what you'd be missing if they all went up in smoke. Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear, prowling and a-growling and a-sniffing the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name. If you've ever seen the forest when a fire is running wild, and you love the things within it like a mother loves her child, then you know why Smokey tells you when he sees you passing through, remember, please be careful, it's the least that you can do. Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear, prowling and a-growling and a-sniffing the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name. Well, that's it, young fellas. Smokey the Bear, my friend and yours. But he needs our help, Smokey does. Your help and mine, to keep our forest green and growing. So let's always remember, and ask Pop and Mom to remember, too, what Smokey says. Remember, only we, you and I, can prevent forest fires. Now let's all sing the song. Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear, prowling and a-growling and a-sniffing the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name. Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear, prowling and a-growling and a-sniffing the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name.
Welcome to the Young Executives Outdoor Survival Course. I'm Bob, your instructor.
Hi, Bob.
First off, can anyone tell me the proper way to put out this campfire?
Ooh, assemble a committee with all key department heads?
Oh, let's get research involved.
Don't forget legal.
Hold on, folks. To put out a campfire, all you have to do is pour water on it, like this.
Oh!
Then stir it and cover it with dirt. Now, isn't that easy?
Committee?
Well, maybe. I say yes.
Let's vote on it.
A message from the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Advertising Council.
All right, we're back after a break here. This is 107.7 KNYO, Fort Bragg, USA show, and we have Elk Fire Chief Jeff Roy on the line. And Jeff, we're into some more questions. Our hour's getting short on us, but do you offer training for firefighters, and how often do you do that? And are your financial levels adequate for the training?
Yes, we hold trainings twice a month. And then there's supplemental trainings that people occasionally go through, especially the EMTs. And a point of discussion we've had recently is we've been wanting to bring in people from the outside to do trainings. just to get a higher quality of information, some of the more current things that are going on out there. And, those people have to be paid and travel time and everything. But I would say that expense, we're struggling more with our own manpower than we are coming up with $500 or $1,000 to bring somebody in.
That's interesting because I can imagine in small towns where like a lot of firefighters or volunteers might have the same last name, for instance, like Joe could say, well, my brother Bob, Bill, and Ray, they're all EMTs now, and just sign off a certification. So if you have somebody from the outside, you're all on the same field at that point, and you all have to pass every element of it. So that's interesting that you could bring somebody in from the outside and, nobody slips through without really being trained properly, I suppose. Not saying that happens, but, takes that element out. Do you guys offer training for the fundraising side of the fire department?
I have seen trainings for that, but so far we have not been able to attend one, no.
Okay. Now, you guys do mutual aid with you have agreements with outside fire departments and with the state. How does that work out with the whole fund thing? I guess I didn't really phrase that question very good, did I?
I think you did, and I think the answer for us is we don't do that many mutual aid calls. And, we go on every one we're called on, but there just aren't that many of them for us. 60 calls a year, we might be lucky to get one mutual aid call. Now, the state mutual aid system, many times here in Elk, I've been at large fires up in the hills and just looked at these fire engines coming in from the outside, and I didn't even recognize the towns listed on the doors. And that made a big impression on me because we really needed their help.
Yeah.
And so recently we've been going out and returning that favor. The Butte fire down by Sacramento recently this summer. And now when we go out on those fires, that is a contract thing with the state, and you get paid.
Okay.
Our firefighters get paid, and the community service district gets paid for the use of their fire engine.
That's pretty reasonable.
Hey, Jeff, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You guys have a Pepper Martin Day in Elk, right?
Yes.
And he's like a famous baseball player, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's kind of a famous, humorous, down-and-out, dirty guy kind of a baseball player, yeah.
Do you think that your fire department would be up for a Pepper Martin challenge?
Ooh, boy. Well, given the age of all of us,
all right. Here's you know how to calculate.
You
know how to calculate a batting average, right?
Let me think.
You take your hits and you divide it by your at bats.
Yes, I do.
And you get a 3-decimal fraction, right?
Well, for most people, yeah.
What if we divided the number that your fire department raises by the number your taxpayers raise?
In terms of
fundraising?
Raising money. Because through your community service district, your taxpayers raise so much money for the fire department, and your fire department raises so much money. So what would you say about calculating a batting average based on that? Because if you did that, that would put your current batting average at 125, right? Do you know what Pepper Martin's batting average was?
250?
298.
Okay.
So here's 125 is respectable. I think that was the New York Mets bench last year. Now, I know you've got neighboring fire districts doing a little bit worse on that.
Yeah, much worse.
So you're actually kind of leading right now, but you're not quite in Pepper Martin country. You'd have to raise $30,000 for that, and that's net. Now, I think you can do it. Do you?
I'm sure we can do it.
Well, I'm throwing down. I am throwing down because I know you can do it. Okay, Joe, it's over to you. I'm going to take over, and you can humiliate this guy now.
No, we're going to go easy.
I've got a rich benefactor waiting to go here.
Just because I live in Elk doesn't mean I'm going to, I want to make sure my house gets put out if it's on fire. All right, here's a true-false question. Elk Fire Department is currently registered with the state as a public benefit fire department. True or false?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll give it to you then. The answer is false. The listing with the state is currently delinquent. Okay, and then here is an easy question. Well, at least that's the way we wrote it. Tell me the last year that Elk Fire was registered with the state.
In terms of?
The Registry of Charitable Trust.
Oh, again, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, we maintain our mutual aid registrations every year and, of course, tax stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
The answer is, well, we'll give you a combination. The answer is 2001, when W had just taken office.
So it's been quite a while since you guys have actually been registered with the state.
Well, that's not a record. Bobby Thompson outdid EVFD in that department.
And Bobby Thompson was the guy that embezzled $100 million from a nonprofit or something like that?
That's the guy.
And he is registered now.
Oh, yeah, in federal prison with a sweetheart named Bubba.
All right.
Well, if we even had that much money in our checkbook ever.
Yeah, it's hard to embezzle from nothing, huh?
I wouldn't say nothing. I've heard of embezzling around the area, but not that much.
Okay, well, on to question 3. True or false? And I may have already given this answer earlier. Raffles are required to be registered with the state.
Well, you said they were.
All right, I gave it away. All right, it's true. All right,
you
so
said the other answers too, but
yeah,
given my knowledge.
Now, what if you get caught without registering? Well, this is new to me. I didn't know this.
Your organization can get revoked.
Okay, but that could be bad, I suppose.
Well, it's not as bad as sharing a cell with Bubba.
Well, we actually recently were revoked as a nonprofit because evidently we didn't know we had to file a certain form.
Yeah, you might want to get that taken care of.
That's kind of the angle, I guess, of where we would like to see accountability in a lot of different nonprofit agencies, and you agreed to come on the show.
We want to help you.
Yeah, we want to help you and have fun with it too. In fact, just for this, I want to go to the next barbecue benefit.
Yeah, man, let's go. Yeah. Let's both go.
So for the next question 4 here, this is true and false. Wait a minute.
Nope,
I got to move ahead a little bit. Elk Fire has never registered a raffle with the state. Wine Song has even done that. We're on to question 5. The Elk Community Services District just released a report about Elk Fire, and they reported that its financial levels were blank to deliver fire protection and emergency services. Would the blank be considered groovy, adequate, inadequate, or dripping like candle wax?
Well, let me see. I'm pretty good at eliminating ridiculous answers, so I'll skip a couple of those. I would guess they said adequate.
And
it's
actually,
inadequate.
It's inadequate.
Inadequate.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of inadequate today.
The candle wax reference actually has something to do with a pool table in Fort Bragg, but we won't go there. Okay, so on to question 6. It's another question about that report, and it mentions financial levels were inadequate to deliver services and address priorities, including which of the following would it be: training, recruitment, facilities including a new fire station and satellite stations, or all of the above?
Well, I guess all of the above.
That's
good job.
That report was handled by our district, but all those things do apply.
Yeah, that's good. Good answer. Did the report say anything about fundraising?
It mentioned a $4,000 grant.
And where did that come from?
The Community Foundation.
To Elk Fire?
Nope, it was to the fire department in Piercy.
Well, how does that work?
Well, it's...
Well, they're in Mendocino County.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
We've gotten that grant, I think, 3 times, and you have to wait a little time after you get the grant to reapply.
Sure. Are there any other foundations in Mendocino County?
Oh, yeah. There's like 19.
Okay.
We've gotten, let's see, the Rotary Club, we've gotten a small donation. CAL FIRE, we've gotten many times. Been a huge help.
Okay.
Any more you guys know of?
There's like 19 real foundations in Mendocino County.
Like Seroptimist and...
Seroptimists aren't really a foundation, and actually the community foundation isn't a real foundation. The real foundations that can be found on the National Center for Charitable Statistics. Be happy to walk you through that sometime. These are the people with buckets of money and hand them out to fire departments. But there's a there's a requirement. You have to fill out a form, Jeff.
So you fill out the form with no special training?
Nope.
Just follow the instructions on the form?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, this stuff is good to hear. A couple of years ago, we decided to apply for the FEMA grant.
Uh-huh.
And after a year or so of wrangling with it, and we just gave up. The requirements were just huge. And, I mean, anything that's a streamlined, more reasonable setup is great interest.
It's just following directions.
Yeah. I hate paperwork. I repel it, and it makes me nauseated, and most of my receipts in my pickup for work are on the floorboard. So I'm with you. You know, I understand, you know, if there's papers that aren't filled out, I'd be that guy.
No, I did my mother's taxes this morning, and I'm kind of looking for a break.
So on to the last question, I guess, about your articles of incorporation. Elk Fire's stated purpose is to provide blank to the people of Elk. Which of the following answers is wrong? Emergency service, educational service, charitable service, or room service?
Seriously? Well, I'm sure room service isn't on there.
That's right.
You got the right answer. That
That's
one
right.
was fun. All right.
I think I'll have to help you guys with your questions. I can
Well,
give you some good ones.
You know what? We would love to have a line of questions if you want to help us develop them for the next fire chief.
Absolutely. We could use some good ambush material, Jeff.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What do we got here? We've kind of run through our questions. So, Jeff, we understand that a firefighter isn't just a bodybuilder in a fire suit on a calendar or a guy running out of homes with burning babies, and we really appreciate the work that firefighters do and as first responders on so many occasions, from accidents, and I'm not talking just parties, I'm talking accidents and cliff rescues and medical aid when like 9141 is too far away, you know, different departments have to chime in. And yeah, when there's a fire too, so we'd like you to know that we are in this for you and for the people who volunteer many hours of time for our general safety, no matter what the budget you have or where those papers are pushed. And you're coming on to the Fort Bragg USA hour here on KNYO 107.7 here as a testament to your interest in transparency in departments. So, like yours. And I'd like to thank you for your time this evening and would love to try coming down to the barbecue and seeing what you guys are queuing down there at your next fundraiser. I really appreciate it.
You know, absolutely. And, you know, anybody is welcome to come to our trainings or the community service district meeting. It's a public meeting. And you can also access their minutes and, I mean, transparency, what it's all about.
Okay. Now, do you have some last questions here, Scott, before we wrap up?
That's going to be about it for me. I just would like to thank you, Jeff, and we have a prize for you because you did such a good job with your questions and being a good sport. We have How to Raise $500 to $5,000 from Almost Anyone. It's a 1-hour guide for board members, volunteers, and staff by Andy Robinson. You need money and you have a board. Which is the quickest way to improve your bottom line? Hint: you go where the easier money is. As Andy Robinson shows in How to Raise $500 to $5,000 from Almost Anyone, these gifts don't require intensive research. Donor cultivation is minimized. Solicitation is simple and straightforward. Your campaign can be launched and concluded in a span of weeks or months. In essence, Robinson has produced the Everyman's Guide to Asking, a proven, uncomplicated strategy for raising a substantial sum of money efficiently and in a hurry. Written for board members, Robinson's books takes only an hour to read. Fact is, he doesn't need any longer to prepare your board and volunteers for a roll-up-your-sleeves, down and dirty, hey, we just went over goal campaign. So thank you, Jeff Roy.
Okay. Well, thanks for giving me a call.
It's in the mail to you as we speak.
Excellent. And now, hold on for just a second. We're going to play one more last quick break, and then we'll close out a few statements here. And so hold on a moment, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Joe Acaba, and I'm an astronaut. I've flown missions on the Space Shuttle and on the International Space Station. I've had the privilege of viewing our beautiful Earth from 240 miles up, and that's something I'll never forget.
To go over the Earth and see all the things that I had studied as a geologist, to look at the atmosphere and see it from space is just incredible. I was on the International Space Station in 2012 in the summer months, and during that period there were, of course, a lot of forest fires that were going on, and it was very clear to us when we went over those areas where the fires were.
Images from space teach us about the effects of wildfires and the value of careful forest resource management. That's why NASA and the U.S. Forest Service have teamed up to raise awareness of our forests.
And it's why I brought along Smokey on my last mission, taking Smokey Bear where no bear has gone before. We had Smokey with us for 4 months on the International Space Station as a symbol, really, of the partnership that NASA has formed with the U.S. Forest Service.
Smokey Bear is all about preventing human-caused wildfires, and that was part of our mission too.
We were able to take photographs to illustrate the point of the impact of these forest fires. You see all these spots, and you can tell where the fire is originating. You can see the wind direction, and then you see everything downwind that is just covered in smoke. When you see a fire from space, it hits home that we all have a personal responsibility to, when we're outdoors, to take care of fires if we are using a fire.
Did you know that nationwide, 9 out of 10 wildfires are still being caused by people? Smokey's wildfire prevention campaign reminds people to be responsible anytime they use fire outdoors.
We can have an impact on a large part of our planet and our community, so we really need to pay attention to what we do out there.
Remember, only you can prevent wildfires. To learn more about Wildfire Prevention Campaign and what you can do to prevent a wildfire, visit www.smokeybear.com.
Now, Jeff, I'll bet that NASA, that guy speaking for NASA, doesn't have to do anything about filing paper and fundraising at all.
No, but I noticed you got Smokey Bear right instead of Smokey the Bear.
That's true, huh? Interesting. Well, once again, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you calling in and sticking with us and being a good sport with this. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the last hour brought to you by Rhodes Auto Parts, 203 North Main Street in downtown Fort Bragg. We just had Fire Chief Jeff Roy on, and this has been another edition of Fort Bragg, USA. What's the date today? The 6th? It's April 6th, right?
Yes!
All right, just to date the show, so if somebody listens to this podcast, and the preceding portion has been brought to you by the C&J's Warehouse, Joe Wagner, Scott Peterson, special guest Jeff Roy on 107.7 KNYO, Fort Bragg, California. Stay tuned in a moment for regular chaotic programming of the C&J's Warehouse show. Thanks for joining us.